Introduction. Volume 11 shifts Mushoku Tensei away from pure adventure and into the challenge of family responsibility. Rudius has finally built a peaceful life in Sharia, but that peace is about to be tested in a very personal way. Rudius and Sylphadet enjoy a quiet moment at home, showing how stable and warm their married life has become. This calm opening is important, because it gives the coming conflict a stronger emotional weight. That calm is interrupted when Paul arrives with Norn and Aisha. He entrusts both girls to Rudius, effectively asking him to step into the role of guardian and older brother while Paul continues the search for Zenith. Paul explains the situation seriously. He cannot stay, and he needs Rudius to watch over the girls, which turns a simple household into a place filled with new emotional and practical responsibilities. The personalities of the two sisters immediately stand out. Norn is shy, anxious, and uncertain, while Aisha already looks composed and capable, and Paul can only hope Rudius will somehow handle both of them well. Rudius welcomes Norn and Aisha into the house, and tries to make them comfortable. He wants to be kind, but he also realizes that being a good brother is far more complicated than just offering a place to stay. Aisha wastes no time proving how useful she is. She throws herself into housework with energy and confidence, making it clear that she is sharp, disciplined, and far more mature than most children her age. Norn, by contrast, remains withdrawn and lonely. Even in a safe home, she cannot easily relax, because her feelings of insecurity and distance from Rudius are still very strong. The difference between the sisters becomes obvious in daily life. Aisha is active and helpful, while Norn tends to stay by herself, creating a household balance that feels useful on one side and emotionally fragile on the other. Rudius starts thinking seriously about what Norn needs. He can already see that this is not just about feeding and housing her, it is about understanding her heart and the pain she keeps hidden. Under Aisha's care, the house quickly becomes cleaner and more organized. Her competence impresses everyone and adds a light touch of humor, but it also makes Norn's difficulty adjusting stand out even more. Sylphadet is genuinely happy to see the family settle in. She supports the girls kindly and helps keep the atmosphere gentle, showing that she is an emotional anchor for the household. Norn prepares for student life, but her face shows how uneasy she is. The new routine feels like another challenge rather than a fresh start, and her fear of not fitting in is already visible. Rudius walks beside Norn as she enters this next stage of life. He tries to encourage her, hoping that simple support and presence might help her feel less alone. Even surrounded by students, Norn still feels isolated. The scene highlights one of the central themes of this volume. Sometimes loneliness becomes even more painful when people are physically all around you. Aisha, meanwhile, grows into her role with visible confidence. She is proud of what she can do, and her skill makes her seem like the one family member who has fully adapted to the new environment. Rudius now has to balance many identities at once. He is a husband, a student, a mage, and now also an older brother trying to guide two sisters who need very different things from him. A shared dinner shows the whole family gathering in one place. It is a warm image, but beneath it is the question of whether emotional closeness can truly grow, or if everyone is only sitting together on the surface. Late at night, Rudius reflects on his responsibility. He knows strength in battle and skill in magic, but helping family heal is a different kind of challenge entirely. This opening section closes on the image of the family facing the future together. The bonds are not fully healed yet, but the volume makes it clear that this story will be about those bonds being tested and slowly deepened. Aisha's talent keeps drawing attention, and she quickly becomes the kind of person who can change the mood of a room. Her sharpness is almost dazzling, especially when compared with how uncertain Norn still feels. People around the household and school begin to notice Aisha's ability. She is not simply obedient. She is clever, observant, and confident enough to leave a strong impression on everyone she meets. Aisha's competence almost feels overwhelming. She approaches chores and practical tasks with such skill that she seems more like a capable adult assistant than a little sister. At school, Norn sits alone and struggles to connect. She carries both shyness and pressure, and that combination makes her retreat inward rather than reaching out. Some classmates start teasing or intimidating Norn. This social pressure may look small from the outside, but for someone already insecure, it becomes deeply painful. Rudius notices that Norn is not acting like a girl who is simply quiet. Her expression and posture tell him that something is wrong, and he begins paying closer attention. He spends more time around the academy, trying to understand what Norn's daily life is really like. Instead of assuming, he starts observing the world she is struggling to survive in. The pattern becomes clear to him. Norn is not just lonely, She is caught in a web of awkward relationships and silent pressure that she has been carrying alone. Rudeness tries reaching out gently, but Norn resists. From her point of view, he is not a comforting brother yet. He is still a distant, talented older sibling she does not know how to lean on. Left alone with her feelings, Norn breaks down. Her isolation is not dramatic because of scale, but because it is painfully real and familiar. A child silently suffering because she thinks nobody understands. Seeing this makes Rudius remember his own past life, including the loneliness and helplessness he once felt. That memory becomes the key to understanding Norn instead of judging her. Norn's pain keeps building, and the emotional strain becomes impossible to hide. What looks like stubbornness from the outside is really fear, hurt, and the belief that she will only be a burden. Rudius makes a decision here. He will not act like a lecturer or a hero. He will face Norn as her brother, speaking to her honestly and trying to meet her where she is emotionally. The two finally talk in a real way. This is one of the emotional cores of the volume, because Rudius stops trying to solve the problem from above and instead reaches toward Norn with empathy. At last, Norn breaks into tears and lets her feelings out. The crying is not a sign of weakness here. It is the release of all the pressure she has been holding inside. Once the truth is out, the mood begins to soften. Norn is still hurting, but now she is no longer trapped alone with those feelings, and that changes everything. Rudius reassures her that she is not alone and that he does care for Norn. Hearing this directly matters more than any lesson or any practical help he could have offered earlier. Norn finally leans on him and accepts comfort. This embrace is the breakthrough the volume has been building toward, because their relationship starts becoming real from this point onward. The family atmosphere grows warmer again. Even though not every problem disappears, the emotional distance between the siblings has clearly narrowed. Conclusion of the sisters' arc. Rudius, Norn, and Aisha begin to feel like a true family. The volume has shown that victories at home can be just as meaningful as victories in battle. Peace returns for a moment, and Rudius settles back into ordinary life at home. That calm is important because the next turning point arrives only after he has something precious to lose. Another warm family scene reminds us what Rudius is fighting to protect. Home, routine, and affection have become real parts of his life now, not just temporary comforts. Norn is calmer than before, and her small expression of peace shows how much she has changed since the beginning of the volume. The difficult conversations have started to bear fruit. Rudius spends a quiet moment reading, unaware that life is about to shift once again. This sort of stillness always feels dangerous in Mushoku Tensei, because it often comes right before a major turn. A letter finally arrives and immediately changes the mood. The message is urgent, and Rudius can tell from the start that it is tied to something far larger than daily household life. The sealed letter carries news from Geese. Its very appearance feels ominous, and the volume uses this moment to signal that the family story is about to reconnect with the broader search for Zenith. When Rudius reads the contents, he is shocked. Zenith has been found in Bigaret, trapped in a labyrinth, and the news places a painful choice directly in front of him. Then comes the third turning point. In the white void, Hidegami appears and once again inserts himself into Rudius's life, turning a difficult decision into something even more ominous. Hidegami warns Rudius not to go. The warning is memorable because it is not simply advice. It feels like a threat wrapped inside a prediction, making the choice far heavier. Rudius wakes up deeply troubled. He now has to weigh family duty, fear of disaster, and the uneasy knowledge that ignoring Hidegami can have enormous consequences. He opens up to Sylphidette about the situation. Her role here is vital, because she does not just react as a wife, she responds as someone who understands how much this decision means to him. Rudius explains the news to Norn and Aisha as well. For the sisters, this is not abstract information. It is the possible return of their mother, and the possible loss of the brother now holding the family together. The family shares a tight embrace before the separation. The scene captures exactly what Volume 11 is about. Love that hurts because it matters so much. Sylphinette's tears and support give the decision its full emotional impact. She does not want him to leave, but she also understands that he cannot ignore this chance to save Zenith. Rudius speaks with Alinal eyes and commits to the journey. Once that decision is made, the story stops being about whether he will go and becomes about what the cost of going will be. Preparations begin, including help from magic and the Academy's resources. The image of a glowing teleportation circle emphasizes that this is not an ordinary trip, but the start of another major arc. Rudius packs what he needs and gets himself ready. The physical act of packing mirrors the emotional act of leaving behind a safe, happy home for uncertainty and danger. Friends and family gather to see him off. Each face in the farewell adds weight to the departure, and reminds the audience that Rudius is no longer traveling as a lonely wanderer. At last, Rudius departs with Alinalize. The road to Bigaret begins here, and the tone shifts from family drama back toward adventure, but now with much more emotional maturity behind it. End of this act. The peaceful life in Sharia falls behind, and Volume 11 turns toward rescue, danger, and the consequences of Rudius's choice. Rudius and Alinalize arrive through magical transportation and begin the Bigaret journey together. The stark change in scenery immediately tells us that they have entered a land far harsher than their comfortable life in Sharia. From above the city and desert beyond, the scale of Bigaret becomes clear. It is dry, ancient, and unforgiving, a place where survival depends on endurance and smart preparation. The wasteland stretches out in every direction. Bones, rock formations, and empty land all reinforce that this continent is dangerous even before monsters appear. To travel safely, Rudius and Alinalize negotiate passage with a caravan. This practical choice shows their realism, because crossing the desert alone would be reckless even for skilled adventurers. The caravan sets out under the harsh sun. The long line of travelers moving through the dunes creates a strong sense of distance and reminds us how far they still are from Zenith. Ancient bones and ruins line the route, almost like warnings from the past. The desert itself feels like an enemy. Even in moments without direct combat, that danger becomes real when a giant desert monster attacks the caravan. The journey is no longer just exhausting, it becomes a battle for survival in a place where death can appear without warning. Rudius steps in with magic, using his power to protect the group and control the chaos. His growth is clear here, because he fights with experience and responsibility rather than reckless pride. Alinalize takes the front line in close combat, proving why she is such a valuable companion. Her confidence and skill balance Rudius's magic perfectly during the desert battles. Even after combat, the journey remains brutal. Sandstorms and rough weather wear everyone down, showing that in Bigaret, the environment can be as threatening as the monsters. At night, the caravan rests by the fire. These quieter scenes matter because they give the journey rhythm and remind us that endurance is built one difficult day at a time. The desert ecosystem is strange and memorable, filled with unusual creatures and severe conditions. Bigaret feels like a world with its own logic, and travelers must learn to respect it. Eventually, they reach a desert bazaar and trade hub. After so much emptiness, the crowded outpost feels almost lively, but it is still part of a harsh frontier world. Rudius and Alinalize gather information, supplies, and direction in the bazaar. These smaller practical steps keep the rescue mission grounded and believable. They also encounter hardened desert warriors and guides. Every new face in this region carries the sense that only the tough and experienced can survive here. With supplies refreshed, the two adventurers steady themselves and prepare to continue. Their resolve is growing stronger the deeper they move into the continent. The next stretch forces them across even more open desert. The road ahead feels endless, but every step takes them closer to the labyrinth, where Zenith waits. Heat and exhaustion begin to show. The volume emphasizes that heroic determination does not erase physical suffering. It simply pushes people forward in spite of it. At last, a grim stronghold or frontier city appears in the distance, promising that they are nearing the next major phase of the mission. The destination is closer, but so is the danger. Conclusion. Volume 11 ends with Rudius and Alinalize standing on the threshold of the rescue attempt. The family struggles of Sharia have made Rudius stronger emotionally, and now that strength will be tested in Bigaret as the story moves toward Zenith's rescue.